Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Salsa. As the speaker of proposition team of today's motion, this House will impose stricter punishments for corruption. Before we move into the arguments, let me tell you the real current situations in Indonesia. In Indonesia, corruption is already criminalized under the anti-corruption law. Current punishments include imprisonment generally ranging from 4 to 20 years or even life imprisonment in several cases. Fines and additional penalties such as asset confiscation and restitution. In certain extreme cases, the law even allows for the death penalty, although this is rarely applied in practice. However, despite these regulations, corruption remains widespread. This indicates that existing punishments are not successfully deterrent. In this debate, stricter punishments means first, increasing prison sentences, 2, enforcing heavier fines proportion, 3, expanding asset recovery and lifetime confiscation, and 4, applying harsher sanctions consistently, including political bans and disqualification from public offices. With that, I believe that strengthening punishment is necessary to create real deterrence and protect public resources. Why? First, stricter punishments are necessary to create a stronger deterrent effect against corruption. Corruption is often a calculated crime. Many perpetrators weigh the benefits they gain against the risk they will face. In Indonesia, punishments usually include imprisonment and fines. In many cases, the financial penalty doesn't exceed the benefits gained from corruption. As a result, even after being punished, perpetrators may still retain part of their illicit gains. This makes the punishment ineffective because it doesn't create a real sense of loss. Offenders may assume that even if they are caught, they can pay the fines and continue their lives afterward. For example, if someone corrupts a large amount of public funds but only faces a moderate sentence and a manageable fine, they will still benefit financially and continue their life as usual. It means that if the punishment is lighter than the profit, corruption is not a crime. It becomes a calculated investment. 2. Stricter punishments ensure accountability and restore public trust in the justice system. As we all have known, corruption directly harms society by diverting public funds meant for essential services. When corrupt officials receive light punishments, it creates a perception of injustice. For instance, citizens may feel that elites are not held accountable, while ordinary people face harsher consequences for smaller crimes. By imposing stricter punishments, the legal system sends a clear message that corruption is a serious crime with serious consequences also. This reinforces the principle that no one is above the law. 3. Stricter punishments are essential to protect economic development and national progress. Corruption drains state resources that should be used for public welfare. In Indonesia, corruption cases often involve large sums of money that could otherwise fund schools, hospitals, or other infrastructures. When these funds are stolen, development slows and inequality increases. Stronger punishment reduces the likelihood of corruption, ensuring that state budgets are used properly. Additionally, strict enforcement encourages better governance and attracts investment, as investors prefer countries with lower corruption risk. Overall, the core issue in corruption is not the absence of laws, but the lack of strong and credible consequences. As I have shown, corruption continues because the system will still allow perpetrators to benefit either through insufficient punishment, weak accountability, or ineffective deterrence. This means that the current system fails to change behavior. By imposing stricter punishments, we directly target the problems. We increase the cost of corruption, strengthen accountability, and ensure that public resources are protected. In other words, we are not just punishing corruption, but we are changing the incentive structure behind it. This would lead to, first, corruption rates will decrease because the risk will outweigh the benefits. Second, public trust in the legal system will improve as people see that justice is applied fairly and consistently. Third, national development becomes more effective because public funds are no longer lost to corruption. Fourth, stricter punishment also protects the integrity of the state and democracy itself. With stricter punishment, the state sends a clear message, sends a clear message that power cannot be abused without severe consequences. In other words, this is not just about punishing individuals, it is about protecting the future of governance and preventing corruption from becoming part of the system itself. The opponent may say that the enforcement is the real problem, but not the punishment. But in fact, enforcement will only increase the probability of being caught, but punishment determines the severity of consequences. Without strong punishment, even good enforcement has limited effects because if the consequences remain affordable, corruption will still be a rational decision to live. In other words, catching more corruptors is not enough if the system still allows them to get benefits from it. What we need is to ensure that once they are caught, the cost is so high that corruption is no longer worth it. In this debate, the key question is so simple. How do we make corruption no longer worth it? Because as long as corruption remains profitable, it will still continue to exist. Therefore, what matters most is not finding a perfect solution, but ensuring that corruption becomes a high-risk, high-loss decision that will make no one want to join it. And that is exactly what stricter punishment can achieve. In conclusion, the problem of corruption is not the absence of regulation, but the failure of consequences to outweigh the benefits. So, I repeat, as long as corruption remains profitable, it will still continue. Stricter punishment ensures that this is no longer what it should do. For these reasons, I firmly support this motion. Thank you.